Hello, and welcome to the Customer Service 101 module for RA training. I'm Complex Director Megan Carney, and I wanted to be sure to go over a few important things when working with customers or students or parents that we value here at UHDS. So, a basic breakdown of what customer service is. It's essentially the process of making sure that people are satisfied with the service that we provide, which is housing for our students, and also helping with interactions of conflict with parents or students. One of the golden rules that I like to follow or go by in life is, how do you want to be treated? And in this scenario, how do you want to be treated as a student? It's really helpful to put yourself in that perspective when helping others so that you know that they're being treated the way that you want to be treated. Another important thing that I like to think about is, how would I want other people to treat my parents or friends? So in interacting with adults, such as parents or guardians of students, think about how you would like your parents or friends to be treated when having those interactions, and do so with the utmost respect. An important thing to remember is that you're the face of UHDS. FACE is an acronym that I like to reference because it stands for friendliness, assistance, care and concern, and ease. We'll break this down a little bit more in the next couple of slides, but making sure that, again, you're the actual face of UHDS, you're providing the service, you're the forefront of what students see before they get to the upper levels in Seal Hall, but making sure that you're providing this face and doing so in a way that represents our department and our university in a respectful way. So going back to the acronym and what it means, F stands for friendliness. So that's your body language and your tone and how you communicate with others, how you address parents and students. Are you doing so in a way that's not talking down to them? And are you having open body language when assisting them? Speaking of assisting, assistance is the next piece when it comes to job knowledge. Do you know what you're trying to help them with? And if you don't, are you going to get somebody who can help them? We always want to make sure that we provide the utmost professional customer service we can with our students and parents. So if you don't know, it's always good to find someone who does know. With the care and concern piece, that speaks a lot for sincerity. Are you being genuine when talking to parents and students? Are you looking them in the eyes? Are you expressing empathy for their situations? And are you listening to them sincerely, having that uninterrupted eye contact when you're talking to them and making sure that they feel heard? And then the ease piece comes from working smarter and not harder. This again comes back to assistance with, if you don't know, then you should ask. But also making this job as simple as possible for you when it comes to utilizing your resources to help others when it comes to customer service. So an important thing and something that we'll always encounter in this job is emotional residents or guests. There's some tips that I like to use that will always help in these situations. I come from a heavy customer service background, so I can tell you these things have worked in other settings, and I know that they've worked with parents before. So always remember to keep your cool. There may be somebody yelling at you, there may be someone who's frustrated with the situation, but you have to remain calm and collected in the situation when addressing it with parents or students. Listen carefully and with interest. This comes back to making that eye contact and making that person feel like that they're heard. Empathize. Empathy is a very big piece when it comes to having these interactions and conversations with parents and students. We will touch more upon that in a video that's coming up. And repeat their concerns and ask questions. So everybody wants to feel heard when they have a situation going on that they're not happy with. So make sure that you let them know that you hear them out and ask questions as to how they would like for you to assist, or also how you can assist. This is a big one, apologizing without blaming. We tend to always throw someone under the bus when we're apologizing, saying that it's your fault or that it's the department's fault, but make sure that you do so without blaming, because you don't always have to accept the blame. It's not always our fault. As many people will tell you, the customer is always right, but sometimes they aren't. But we need to address that in an appropriate and respectful way by just simply apologizing for the experience and assisting to make it better. Solving the problem again or finding someone who can. This is very important if you think about move-in. There are going to be a lot of parents that have questions. There are going to be a lot of students who don't know what they're doing. Making sure that if you can't help them, you find someone who can. There's head staff and central staff that's around, and they're going to have questions that you don't know the answer to, so just make sure that you filter them up to someone who does. And then one of the key pieces in dealing with emotional residents is using the feedback to learn and grow. You're going to receive feedback from your supervisor or even from your peers, or sometimes, as somewhat rude it can seem, from the person who's, the one that you're dealing with, which is kind of awkward at times. But make sure that you take that feedback to learn from the experience and see as to how you can implement that in your next experience with others who may have a conflict. It's very important to continue to grow from these experiences. Otherwise, you will lose some of the mastery and the technique that it takes to be able to do this. I know it doesn't seem like rocket science stuff, but it can be very hard for some people who don't necessarily have the ability to empathize with others or get on that level to have those conversations that are not always as easy as we would like. So I talked a little bit about the video, and we're going to watch this video here from Brene Brown.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So obviously more, deeper discussions that they're talking about there, but definitely plays into how you deal with others and having those conversations when it comes to customer service. It's really important to remember that empathetic approaches when dealing with parents and students will take you a lot further and will leave a positive impact on those individuals, and they'll remember that. People remember you for how you treat them, and it's really important to take that into consideration when doing the work that we do. So to touch upon empathy and some phrases that express that and options we can do to help others, these are some empathetic statements that an individual would use in a situation with a frustrated parent or an upset student or even, guests who aren't complying. So think about that in the realm of customer service, saying, I understand how frustrating it is when your student doesn't have the room that they want when they move in. So definitely expressing the concern for the situation that's going on and addressing that feeling of frustration. Or I realize how complicated it is to try to put together a bed loft. We can find someone who can assist you, or we can contact the company for further help. So again, understanding the complication of that and realizing and expressing that to the individual. I know how confusing it must be when you're moving in the first day of school and you don't know what direction to go into. We would love to help. I'm glad that you called me so that we can take care of this right away. Definitely a great phrase to use when talking to parents and they have concerns that day of move-in, or even, students that you talk to, residents who have conflict and they need your help. Addressing the promptness of that, taking care of the situation right away, is always very, acceptable to do, and it helps the resident or parent feel a little bit more at ease with the situation. Another scenario is providing options for individuals, typically not usually done by an RA, but done by a head staff member. But I think in the options case, here's what we can do. We can find a head staff member to assist you, or we can, ask for further instructions and we can get back to you as soon as possible. These are great ways to segue into those difficult conversations where you need to provide options when somebody is not happy with the situation that they're in, and your empathetic statements are just not cutting it with helping them. So some phrases to avoid when expressing empathy or when working in customer service just in general. I don't know. Never, 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 I don't know. There's always an answer, and like I said before many times, you can always consult up and find someone who knows that answer. Or I can't do that, or we can't do that. We can always make something work. Where there's a will, there's a way, and our university and department are, able to assist students the best that we can, and we will exhaust multiple options that we need to make sure that students and parents are receiving the services that they pay for and that they deserve. Expressing urgency and saying you have to do this, or you have to meet here, or you have to be understanding. Those aren't going to get you anywhere, so just make sure that you avoid them. Saying just a second and putting someone on pause, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, when you get that one finger to the face saying just a second, or hold on, or no, stop. Those are not ways you want to interact with individuals who we're providing this service for. And saying no in general, it's okay to say no sometimes, but using it as an exclamatory statement when answering somebody is not going to be beneficial on our end when providing customer service. So there's a reflection here as well. What do you think that you can say instead of these to make it more appealing and pleasant to a person on the other end of a call or even in person? So what can you say instead of no? Or what can you say instead of just a second? Or I don't know? Take a moment to think about that and provide an answer for me below, and we will discuss those and reflect back on those. Another important thing to talk about is email etiquette. It's one of the most frequent misinterpreted forms of customer service. You send a lot of emails to your supervisors, you may send some to your floor, just making sure that when you get emails from parents that you're doing so and addressing those in an appropriate manner. I know as a head staff member I get a lot of those. So making sure that you're addressing those promptly and in a way that does express our emphasis on customer service. Email etiquette, phone etiquette, and any type of electronic messaging can always be misinterpreted. I think that you never know the inflection of someone's expressions or their tone of voice when you're doing this, so it makes it super hard to understand that that person could be misinterpreting what you're saying and deciphering it from their current emotion. So if an angry parent is emailing me, their current emotion when writing that email is anger and frustration. And their current emotion when receiving my reply to that email, whether it's as well intended as I would like it to be and as kind and polite as it can be, is going to be anger. They're going to read that with that emotion. So you can never control that, but understand when you receive something in anger that you're probably going to get that perception from their end when you reply. So making sure that you choose your words carefully and that you're, addressing them in a way, again, that provides that empathy and support. It's also really important to provide a way to have that follow-up piece, whether it's done in email saying, they could email you back, or addressing in the email, you can contact me at this number or my head staff member at this number. Just expressing that if they, again, to clarify, if they don't understand or if they're misinterpreting what is said, that they have a way to clear the air and kind of eliminate all that confusion over the phone. So some things to remember to do when working through email, making sure that you're addressing the individual through their email signature or name. I don't never like to assume a prefix. It's easier to take a gender neutral approach and just use someone's given name. So say if Dr. Oakes was emailing me and she signed it Michelle, I as a professional staff member would respond back to hello Michelle. But in a situation where they sign it Dr. Oakes, I would definitely address it hello Dr. Oakes. So make sure you always honor that prefix. Things like doctor or professor, those are earned prefixes, and when parents email you and they're a doctor or they address that, you want to make sure that you recognize that. Greet an individual and identify who you are. It's really important in an email to make sure that you're saying who you are in the first couple of sentences so that they know who they're speaking with. Make sure that when you're getting an email, you're replying and sending the email in an appropriate time of day and in an expedient manner. I like to live by the rule of the email should be replied to within 48 hours, or when I receive an address of a concern, I should be responding to that within 48 hours of receiving it, so that everything's done in an expedient manner and people don't feel like they were put on the back burner. Make sure that in an email you're identifying why you're emailing or addressing them. And when addressing it, please make sure that you are touching upon the issues that they have expressed, so that you're making sure that they know that this is what you are going to help with and assist with in the process of remedying the situation. Ask if there's any other further resources you can provide for them, parent or student. Make sure that we use our tools wisely. We have a ton of resources at our fingertips in our department as well as in our university. Definitely use those to your advantage when working in customer service. Provide contact information, always really important, especially if you are an RA sending an email. Making sure that you're copying in a supervisor if you're having a difficult time with addressing the situation, and letting them know that they could contact a supervisor by sending them an email or even calling them. It's always, always, always okay to copy us in if you are having a difficult time. And end with a sincere and appropriate closing. Obviously, you want that person to, be able to see that you are trying to help. So, respectfully, Megan Carney, or kind regards, Megan Carney. Please let me know if you have any further concerns, and thank you for your time today, Megan Carney. So make sure that you're ending with those appropriate closings so that they know, obviously, that you have sincere gesture from that email. Another important thing to remember is phone etiquette. So you may not always have to answer the phone. I know that RAs don't sit at the desk, but you will be using a phone pretty frequently when it comes to duty calls, and that is still a form of customer service. We are still interacting with outside campus partners who we are providing a service for, such as OPS, other UHDS team members, campus partners, and of course your residents and residents' parents or guardians, and family members too. Make sure that when you answer those calls, you are doing so in an appropriate manner, and you're, kind of moving through those same motions of an email, addressing the concerns, and understand that when you're on that phone call, you're representing yourself, but also the department, and you need to do so in a professional manner over the phone. Some ways to do that are definitely listed here, so we can talk a little bit about those. Smile. Obviously, people can hear your voice when you're smiling. Right now I'm smiling. You can probably hear that. Always greet an individual on the other line, so, saying hello or, expressing that, you're happy to hear from them. Things like that always go a long way. State your name, especially when making duty calls up to head staff or even to OPS. We need to know who we're talking to, so if there are any questions, we can call to clarify. But this even helps with parents. I have a lot of parents say, they talk to a male RA or they talk to a female RA. I have a lot of those. I don't know who they are. So making sure that you tell them who you are so that they can remember that, or even write it down if they're, recording the conversation. But expressing your name and letting people know who you are is super important via phone conversations. Very important, I talked before about hating getting the finger saying one moment. If you have to put someone on hold, please ask first. Ask if, you have a moment, if they're, able to wait on hold, or, asking them, are you able, to take a moment? I need to consult up for that information. Could you please hold? And wait till you receive that confirmation before you put them on hold. Super important. Ask the person if they've collected all the information that you've given and clarify that it's correct. So if you're giving them a telephone number or an address or a student name or ID, make sure that you're repeating that for clarification if they have questions, or even just to verify that they have it correct on their end. And then when, ending the phone call, asking if there's anything you can do further to help. And again, with that farewell greeting, being very sincere. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope to speak to you again. All of that, good stuff when ending that call, making sure that you leave it on a high note for sure. So it's important to remember that this type of communication and customer service extends to interactions that we have as an internal staff with our text message and GroupMe messages, making sure that we're doing so in a way that is courteous to one another. As a team, we provide this service, and we would never want it to be a false representation of how we provide the service in the way that we may mistreat each other. So making sure that we treat one another in an appropriate and professional manner can always be seen as a positive reflection of how we treat others. So some simple guidelines to remember is being respectful to all that are involved in the conversation, being courteous to one another's time, not sending messages too late, not sending them too early, making sure that you're asking questions in advance and nothing is last minute, and then professionalism, making sure that the way that you speak in those conversations that we're having are positively representing yourself in the department, but also, not hurting anybody else's feelings or, being misinterpreted. And if they are misinterpreted, making sure that you're having those one-on-one conversations after all of this happens to address maybe some animosity that may have occurred. And 80-20 is definitely something that I hold very dear to my heart. It's an expression that I use, being 80%. If the question pertains to 80% of the group, please ask it aloud so everyone can know for reclarification. And if it pertains to about 20% of the group or just you, shoot someone a direct message and ask them individually so we're not, again, wasting anybody's time, and also so you don't look unprepared. It's really important. We want you to look good, and we know that you're a great representation of the department, so making sure that you're getting that clarification you need. So just a couple final reminders and takeaways from the presentation for our module for customer service. Remember, you're the face of your community and department. Remember this acronym, it will stay with you always, and it's very helpful when having those conversations and feeling frustrated, just remembering you are the face. Use empathy over sympathy. It's the way to go, and it will take you very far when interacting with others who may be upset or frustrated with a situation or with you. Providing support and passing it along if you don't know the answer, always important. Always consult up. Your emails can be misinterpreted by others no matter how well-intentioned. This also goes for text messages and GroupMe messages. So making sure that you're following up with that clarification to make sure that no one's feelings were hurt by the situation, and also that you provided a way to help and remedy what has happened. It's okay to apologize. It's not a sign that you're wrong. Again, remembering to apologize for the situation that had happened and not throwing anybody under the bus in the apology, especially yourself. Be respectful to all that you encounter. Again, you are a university representative. These individuals are utilizing and, in need of the services we provide. So making sure that you're doing so in a way that makes you proud and would make the university proud of who you are and the interactions you're having. And then smile. It's contagious. People can hear it in your voice, and it is one of the best free services that we can provide for any Leatherneck on campus. And off. Thank you so much. This is the end of our customer service module. If you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with the module or follow up with a member of the training team. We would love to help you out if you need any clarification on the expectations we have for your customer service.